Welcome back to Unqualified Critics. In this video, I am reviewing the Varla Eagle One, a twin motor electric scooter. This thing is an absolute monster. I've had a blast on this scooter. So let's break this thing down in this review and find out, is this worth the cost? First, we have to look at the specs on this monster. So with an advertised top speed of 40 miles per hour and a nearly 80-pound weight for the unit itself, you know this thing is serious. Twin 1000 watt motors over a 30-degree climbing angle and dual hydraulic brakes that are anti-lock brakes. I mean, this thing is more like a Harley than it is a scooter. Really amazing. It's got a beautiful coilover suspension that is extremely heavy duty. And this is the first scooter I've ever ridden where I don't feel like I'm nearly too heavy to ride it. I weigh about 215, but I am well under the recommended 265-pound limit. But in fact, this will go all the way up to 330 pounds. So unless you're Eddie Hall, you probably can ride this scooter, and it is absolutely premium. This scooter comes with a lot of great accessories, which we'll talk about that, but the main feature of this review is going to be that riding experience. Also, out of the box, something I noticed, there is no front headlight. And actually, there are headlights, but they're down embedded in the deck of the scooter. In practice, they work pretty well. By it not being integrated with the handlebars though, you miss out on being able to turn your handlebars and have the headlight turn with you. Instead, it operates more like a typical car where the headlights are just always pointed forward based on which direction your scooter is headed. So it's okay, not a big deal, but I would have liked to have seen an integrated headlight in the handlebar. Also, this thing screams complexity. This is like Jetsons tier controls. We've got multiple screens here, an LED screen, an LCD screen. We've got a lot going on in these handlebars, and that is going to be really a preview of what the riding experience is like. We've got 3 different levels of gears to pick from. We've got an eco mode that we can engage, and then we can engage both motors or only one motor. So there are a huge number of possibilities when you want to ride this with what you want the experience to be like. And I'll tell you, if you have the twin motors disengaged, you roll this thing with just one motor and you're in first or second gear, you're going to feel really stable and safe for an electric scooter, more so than a typical smaller or ultralight scooter like the kind I'm accustomed to reviewing, because you've got those huge 3-inch wide pneumatic tires and that really robust suspension. So the whole experience is rock solid, but I really want to caution you, do not engage that second motor and get up into third gear until you feel comfortable on this, unless you really are a veteran scooter rider. If you're new to electric scooters and you hop on this, you can do that. By the way, you absolutely can do that. You can stay in gear 1, you can stay in just one motor, ride around for a few miles, get the feel of it. But once you kick on that second motor, you really need to make sure you're locked in. You need to make sure you're holding this handlebars tight. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm just saying you need to be safe on this scooter. It does come with a free elbow pad and knee pad set. You should be wearing those, and 100% wear a helmet. I normally wear a helmet on any electric scooter, but normally not for my reviews. But man, for this thing, you bet your ass I was wearing a helmet. But this is by far the most fun I've ever had on a scooter. This thing takes very savage hills, as you can see, no problem, almost no slowdown. Absolute monster of a scooter. It handles well too for how heavy it is and how substantial it is. The thing handles great. It's extremely comfortable to ride, so it is amazing. But what it is not is portable, and I think you know that. If you're watching this scooter review, you want something that's a lot of fun that you can take maybe even off-road, which you can't do with a light portable scooter because the wheels are too small. But here you can. I rode this on gravel, no problem. I rode this on dirt, no problem. And I hit some bumps and potholes, no problem. With an ultralight scooter, you're going to have issues with those, but this is not the kind of scooter you can fold up and take wherever you want. It's tough to load in and out of a car. Basically, this is a scooter you're going to have at your house or in your garage, and you're going to take it out and ride it, and you're going to bring it back, but you're never really going to fold this thing up and jump into the subway. But again, if you're watching this review, you're into these larger, heavy, superpower scooters, you kind of know what you're in for. You get a great riding experience, far beyond what you get with the ultralight portables, but you're just not going to be able to move the scooter around much unless its wheels are engaged. And speaking of engaging, there is an ignition system. So it does come with 2 keys, and without that key, you can't operate the scooter, which is something that I'd like to see integrated into more and more electric scooters. We need that level of anti-theft protection. In my opinion, anything over $500 on a scooter, we're going to need protection, because end of the day, you know, I could say this scooter's hard to move around, but it's a lot easier to pick up and steal than, say, a motorcycle. And we're getting into some substantial investment territory if you're going to buy this scooter. So you will have that key to run with, and you take the key out and the thing is a paperweight, which is nice peace of mind when you have this out in park. As far as appearance, it kind of looks about like you'd expect. If you look at the grip mat on the deck, we've got that flaming skull look. I recognize that's not going to be for everyone. My scooter came with a couple extra replacement pads, which is nice to see, with some different graphics. And originally I thought, the flaming skull, it's a little too affliction for me. I need to change that. But I think I want to roll with it. I really do. I mean, this scooter is so extreme and over the top. Why not have extreme and over-the-top graphics? I do have a complaint, though, that the top isn't integrated. I really like foot decks that have an integrated rubber compound deck and not an adhesive backed texture like this, because end of the day, it will eventually peel. You will lose some of that look, some of that polish when the corners peel up. And yeah, you can get rubber cement. There are things you can do to get it resealed back onto the scooter. But for this amount of money, I'd like to see a better deck. Maybe not with the replaceable graphics, you'd lose that, but you would just get something that looks and feels a little more premium for the price. But that truly is the only thing on here that doesn't seem premium to me in terms of look and feel, is that foot deck. So it's a very minor complaint. Overall, this looks, feels, and rides like a $1,600 scooter, like you would expect. And they do have a deal right now, $150 off if you buy 2. Depending on when you watch this video, that may or may not be valid, but I'll put a link below if you want to click through to that and check it out. But next, let's talk about my actual experience riding this scooter in the real world. I achieved a 16-mile range and a top speed of 31 miles per hour, but this isn't really the full story. This is a 2-motor scooter, and I ran the scooter at basically top speed a huge percentage of the time. Think about if you bought a Tesla with a 300-mile range, but you crank that thing up to its top max speed of like 140 or whatever they top out at, and you cruised around. You wouldn't get very far, and that's what I did here. I'm actually amazed that I got 16 miles. I'm convinced if I ran this with just 1 motor instead of 2, which is perfectly workable, it's still a good amount of power. These are 1,000-watt motors after all. Then clearly I could have doubled my range, and even then I wouldn't necessarily have to top out with turbo mode engaged the whole time, which I did have turbo mode engaged most of the time I rode. Why is that? Well, it's just so fun to ride this thing flat out. It really is. The instruction manual says this is only safe for up to 25 miles per hour, and I think that's probably true. At 31 miles an hour, you really need to be paying attention. Now, on paper, this does go to 40 mph. I don't know why I couldn't reach 40 mph. I don't know if I have some governor enabled, you know, inadvertently or whatnot. I plan to reach out to the manufacturer and ask about that. But I didn't really feel much of a need to go any faster. I think going much faster than 31 would start to feel unsafe, even for me, a fairly experienced scooter rider. So I actually was perfectly happy at the 31. It felt incredibly fast. And of course, it's running the battery down. So if I'm going 40, I can't even imagine how much compromised battery range I'm going to get. The riding experience also was fantastic on gravel. On dirt, I mean, I really had no problem, and that's thanks to these wide tires, but it's also thanks to the extreme amount of power that the scooter brings to the table. The brakes, those analog brakes, the dual disc brakes were amazing. Slowing down and coming to a stop is fantastic. It's very smooth. It's very controlled. It's very quiet too. Some brakes are squeaky, but I didn't have that experience here at all. These brakes are amazing. They're actually a high point of the scooter. In terms of features, I think less would be a little more here. We've got 3 different gears we can shift into. We've got the aforementioned turbo versus eco mode, and then finally we can do twin motor or single motor. There are just so many options. It's hard to keep track of it. I don't know why I need a turbo mode in addition to 3 gears. Why not just call it gear 4? You know, for example, why would I ever want to be in first gear but then also turn turbo on? It seems a little goofy. I like the round LCD display at first, but then under direct sunlight, it's pretty much impossible to read. We really needed an LED readout here. Again, I like that they did a round LCD. It looks nice here. It really looks like part of the design, and those screens cost a little more than your conventional square LCD, but readability is king. And when I'm riding and I can't tell my speed, you know, that's not ideal. And speaking of speed, by the way, I did double check the speedometer speed with my phone's GPS tracking, and I actually found them a 1-to-1 match. My phone found a top speed of 31 miles per hour, and the onboard computer told me the exact same speed. That's always heartening. Some manufacturers will actually read you a different speed than you're achieving, but this seems to track speed very, very effectively. And I don't have to tell you guys that the acceleration is amazing, because you would expect that with the twin 1000 watt motor. So I have absolutely no complaints about the performance. The build quality seems absolute rock solid. The only thing I notice after about 10 miles, I do get a smacking sound when the wheel is spinning at speed. And any of you with experience riding electric scooters know this comes up a lot. I need to run some experiments and see if I can track down what's causing the sound. Now, I mentioned that 16-mile range, which again, I really want to stress and does not tell the full story. If you were range testing a Tesla, you would never do it at full speed most of the time. And in fact, that's what I did here on this scooter. I think you are going to get 30 miles plus out of this scooter easily for a normal adult or even a little larger adult. So I have no issues with the range. Here's where I ran into a problem. The LCD display was showing me a 50% charge, and then the battery completely died at 16 miles. I ended up having to push it back home. These aren't portable scooters, so you can't just fold it up and throw it in your trunk. So I'm pushing this thing back across my neighborhood like a goofball. I wasn't disappointed at the range. I was disappointed at the inconsistency of the computer's readout. And again, any of you familiar with electric scooters know this is a common problem. Basically, the technology for measuring how much energy is left in a battery is itself unreliable, so you expect issues, but this was a big issue. When I had ridden the day before, and I had not charged it up since because I was doing my range test, I had got the scooter down to 1 bar, but then when I come back, it's back at half capacity. So obviously something was wrong. I should have known, hey, I left this at 1 bar. Now I'm coming back at 2 bars. I probably need to charge this before I go on a trip. But I didn't. I took it at face value and I just rolled with it, and then the battery died. So that was probably the biggest accuracy gap I've experienced on an electric scooter ever. So keep that in mind when you're on trips. Probably bringing a battery pack with you is not a bad idea. But overall, final thoughts on this Varla Eagle One. I love it. I think this scooter is amazing. I recommend it if you have some experience with scooters, you're ready to make this level of investment. You know, you live somewhere conducive to being able to ride an electric scooter pretty regularly, and you're okay not getting a travel scooter. But for the power, for the comfort riding it, and just the overall badass experience, this scooter really is amazing. I'm going to put a link below if you want to buy this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon. If you got questions about the scooter, leave them below, and I'll do my best to answer all of them.